October 1962. For 13 days, the world held its breath. In Washington, military commanders prepared nuclear bombers. In Moscow, Soviet leaders waited for the next move. Across the Atlantic, submarines armed with nuclear weapons moved silently beneath the ocean. One wrong decision, one misunderstood signal, could have started a nuclear war. This was the moment the world came closest to total destruction during the Cold War. It began when American spy planes discovered something shocking on the island of Cuba. Missile bases. Not ordinary weapons, but Soviet nuclear missiles capable of reaching major U.S. cities within minutes. The discovery triggered what we now call the Cuban Missile Crisis. And for nearly 2 weeks, humanity stood on the edge of catastrophe. The crisis began on October 14, 1962. A U-2 reconnaissance aircraft flying over Cuba photographed Soviet missile installations under construction. When the images reached the White House, President John F. Kennedy and his advisors were stunned. The Soviet Union, led by Nikita Khrushchev, had secretly placed nuclear missiles just 90 miles from the United States. From Cuba, those missiles could strike cities like Washington, New York, or Chicago in minutes. Kennedy immediately gathered a secret group of advisors, known as the Executive Committee, often called XCOM. Inside tense meetings, they debated their options. Some generals urged immediate airstrikes. Others warned that bombing Cuba might trigger nuclear war with the Soviet Union. Every decision carried terrifying risks. Instead of launching an attack, Kennedy chose a different strategy. He announced a naval blockade around Cuba, calling it a quarantine. The U.S. Navy began stopping Soviet ships headed toward the island. If those ships tried to break the blockade, American forces were prepared to fire. Across the world, people watched the confrontation unfold with fear. Schools practiced nuclear attack drills. Families prepared fallout shelters. Meanwhile, Soviet ships continued sailing toward the blockade line. For hours, the world waited. Finally, several Soviet ships slowed down and turned back. But the crisis was far from over. Missiles were still being installed in Cuba, and tensions kept rising. On October 27th, the situation reached its most dangerous point. That day is often called Black Saturday. An American U-2 spy plane was shot down over Cuba. The pilot, Major Rudolph Anderson, was killed. At the same time, U.S. naval forces detected a Soviet submarine near the blockade line. What they didn't know was that the submarine carried a nuclear torpedo. Under extreme pressure and believing war might have already begun, the submarine commander considered launching it. One officer aboard the submarine refused to approve the launch. His decision likely prevented a nuclear explosion. The world never knew how close it came to disaster. Behind the scenes, secret negotiations were happening. Khrushchev offered a deal. The Soviet Union would remove its nuclear missiles from Cuba. In return, the United States promised not to invade Cuba. Privately, the U.S. also agreed to remove American nuclear missiles from Turkey. On October 28, 1962, Khrushchev announced the missiles in Cuba would be dismantled. The crisis was over. The world stepped back from the brink of nuclear war. But the lesson remained clear. For 13 days, the fate of humanity depended on restraint, communication, and a few critical decisions. And history reminds us just how close the world once came to ending. Follow and subscribe for more true stories that change the world.